Thank you for joining, guys. Yeah, definitely a lot more people than earlier. So it just goes to show that definitely doing it later is better. How was everyone's weekend? What did everyone get up to? Share some project frustrations and see if we relate. Oh, ground level media, you have got a good topic there. I tell you what, project frustrations. Well, anyway, I'll start with this. So, guys, thank you for joining me on Earthworks Hub Live. I'm gonna hit it up straight up with this topic: project frustration. So, ground level media has kindly nominated this topic. So project frustrations, something that I don't like is basically I'm not a perfectionist, but I like things to go as planned. So some of my project frustrations are when things don't go to plan. So when I prepare a quote, I try and allow for everything possible, and always put in a bit of a buffer just to make sure in case we stuff something up or things don't go to plan. But inevitably something does go wrong. So my frustrations with project are when I'm not hitting the targets that I want. So a lot of times I'll estimate how much soil is going to come out. Just for example, a site cut or a retaining wall. I'll estimate so much, and then people will say, and then I'll start working, and then halfway through I'll realize like there's going to be a lot more material than I thought, and then it's very hard to go up to the customer and say, look, I've made a mistake, and get them to try and adjust the price. So that is one of the biggest frustrations for me. So a lot of times I've done projects, and actually I call them voluntary projects, because by the end of the project I haven't really made any money, and all I've done is just volunteer my time. So I've done a lot of those, and I don't want to do those anymore. But ground level, I think doing underestimating how much material is coming out, maybe underestimating how long it's going to take. So sometimes I also estimate, I'm going to have, 5 tippers today coming in and taking away, 6 loads each. And then I say, all right, so that by today we should smash out this much material. And then the next minute we've got, all these hold ups, trucks don't come in, or they can't manage to even make that many loads because they've been held up at the tip, or there's, all these unforeseen things, or it starts raining halfway through the day. So yeah, man, that's some of my project frustrations. A quick shout out to my sponsors. So Network Finance, the Bole Group, Melbourne Tractors, Spartan Machinery, Nexgen Landscapes, and JR Safety Co. Other people have been starting to put up some more topic suggestions. So we've got here lunch food prep projects, how to annoy a colleague. There you go. Unforeseen issues here. So a quick one on lunches. I try and prepare lunch every day for the next day. So I'll take leftovers usually from the night before. And I find that if I go in with food, I'm less likely to quickly run out at lunchtime and buy takeaway or fast food, or I'm less likely to stop at a servo and buy crap. So I usually try and take leftovers. We buy those little throwaway containers from like one of the local supermarkets, and then at the end of dinner, I'll pack everything in, put it in the fridge for the morning. And then what I also do is I always keep a can of tuna as a spare bit of food in my lunchbox. So I always have a can of tuna in there with a spoon, so that worst case I can at least have that tuna. Because what I find is if you come to work and you haven't actually prepped any food, and you've only got half an hour for lunch, you're going to most likely jump in the car, rush down to pass a fast food place, pick something up, and then come back and quickly scoff it all down and go back to work. And then you're not burning it off. If you're like me and you sit in the machine most of the time, you're not burning those calories. So you've got to be really careful. The other thing you can do, and I do this often, is you can go to the servo. So then not everything's bad. Like if you go to a 7-Eleven, you can get the wraps. You can go get sandwiches. There's like in the fridge. If you've got microwaves at work, you've got like those frozen meals and that, like muscle meals and whatever. If you want, they're better choices than getting a sausage roll or a meat pie. So that's what I do. I avoid the meat pie and sausage rolls. Every now and then I'll have one. I can't say I never do. But I go like for those. My favorite thing is at like a 7-Eleven, those little Southern fried chicken wraps. There's two in a little box. Best thing, man. Or you can get sushi rolls in there, and you can get like the pre-made sandwiches. and they're going to have less calories than the other crap that's in there. So I think that's probably the best thing. Let me quickly scroll back. There was some other questions here that I missed. Best grease guns. So Kiwi in Cairns is saying, what are some of the best grease guns? I think the Milwaukee one is probably the better one out there at the moment that I've used, and I like it because you can adjust how many pumps it does. So I've got a couple of other ones that don't have that on there, and they just go ultra quick and just pump out like 20 pumps in once, and the next minute you've used like a whole tube on one grease for a 5-tonner, which should not happen. You know what I mean? So, and next minute you've got grease everywhere. It's coming out of all the different pins, and it just makes a mess. And your machine looks like crap. The angry operator has joined. Thanks for joining, man. He just said the same thing, man. Yeah, Milwaukee. Definitely Milwaukee's good, man. Yeah, all the ones on the back of the service trucks. Yeah, if they let you use it. So I've got a couple of Ryobi ones that I bought from Bunnings, and they don't have the adjustable pumps on there, and they just pump out heaps, man. So and DeWalt and currently use Makita, both I found good. So Kiwi in Cairns is saying the DeWalt and Makita are good. I did have this little one that you can, I think it's a Makita one, where you can actually attach any drill to it, and it actually as you're drilling, it's actually pumping out grease. But didn't find it that's handy. The angry operator says the service truck does it for him. Well, even better. Angry operator, actually, speaking of you, I was talking a bit earlier about the silica dust. So I did a post about me using some tiger teeth on this basement job that I'm doing, and in the background, you can see all the dust coming off it as I was working. And the angry operator was the guy that actually mentioned silica dust and how bad it is for you. So I tried to verify it because I have heard about it, but I always thought that it's just mainly in quarries where you're crushing rock and you're crushing concrete, and you got all that dust. And I never actually realized that it's in clay, it's in stone, it's in all the stuff that we work with every day. And I was just saying how over all these years, I reckon I've ingested that much dust from all the jobs that I've done. I don't know how my lungs are going to be, but you don't realize. And even if you're sitting in the cab, you're right, man. It comes in through the air filters, and how often do we actually properly blow out the air filters? And that, I mean, and I work with the cab open a lot of times when I'm listening to instructions from the other guys. So yeah, man, it's scary. Yeah, you definitely raise a good point, man. Yeah, there you go. So he's angry operator saying he's already got some in his lungs. And I suppose when I look at all the facts and the stuff about it, it's actually very similar to asbestos, man. So it's not a good thing. Not a good thing, man. So now, knowing that, I'm definitely going to be keeping my cab closed more often. And yeah, it's just funny because I see all the guys, like all the plumbers and all the labourers and that I work with, and these guys are covered in that while I'm digging, and they're sitting in the trenches while I'm digging, copping the whole lot. And I think, I don't know if everyone's aware of how bad this really is. So maybe we should bring some more awareness out there. And and some of the ways to try and reduce or prevent is to keep the material wet, try and wet it down to keep the dust levels down. So yeah, no, it's very, very bad, man. But I'm glad that you actually brought that up. So that's why I was happy to post that up and show people that it's a lot worse than I actually thought. So the silica dust, look it up, guys. It's not very good for you. Yeah, that's right. And the angry operator is saying that, yeah, if you're not clean shaven, so don't look at me at this moment, but if you're not clean shaven and you wear a mask, it doesn't actually really help as much because you've got openings in that. So I remember that was the same as when we did the asbestos course. Guys that had beards and that couldn't actually really do any of the asbestos stuff. So yeah, the Adorated is saying the handheld Milwaukee or a 20-litre tub air operated is the best. Yeah, I had an air operated one that was really good too. So I have to agree, man. I have to agree. This is going back to those grease guns. Oh, we've got SAR FC on here. Thanks for joining as well. So yeah, I think definitely. I did for the people that have just joined. I did an episode today at 5 o'clock, so it was a bit early, and we had nowhere near as many people on. So that's why I'm redoing it. I thought I'll try again a bit later, and a lot of guys have suggested that I make this at a set time. So I might set it at like 8 o'clock every Sunday. That way everyone knows what time we'll be on. And that way it's going to be a definite rather than, what time's he coming on and they're not sure. Like I've been coming on at random times and I understand, people are busy. So, all right, we'll make it a set time. I might make it 8 o'clock on a Sunday, guys. That way we all know when it's happening. Let me quickly go back to a couple other comments here. Kiwi in Kansas saying, just have another smoke, it'll be all right. Talking about the silica dust again. Somebody mentioned something here I wanted to talk about. Where was that? Was that on TikTok or was that on? So we spoke about best grease guns. Oh, somebody wrote here, Kane. So Kane wrote, if you pop a track in the big diggers, how do you get it on? When you say the big diggers, I'm not sure if you mean anything bigger than a 5 or anything bigger than a 1.7, or you mean like a 20-tonner. If you're talking about like a 20, on my old 20-tonner, what I had to do was try and put the bucket on backwards, like the GP bucket, turn it backwards, pull the track forward a little bit, and hold it with the bucket while I try to put it on. But you'd have to first of all, you'd have to take out the grease nipple for the track tensioner, push back on the tensioner so that your track tensioner comes all the way back, and then try and push the track back on, and then pump grease back into it. So that's on the big 20-tonner, and it's similar for the very similar for the smaller machines. But it's obviously a lot heavier. Thank you for those questions and those the topic suggestions. So also Ground Level Media was talking about, some of the project frustrations that we have. So I went through a couple of those. So I suppose apart from, projects not going on schedule or to schedule or, underestimating things. More, there you going. Thanks for joining. Yeah, so apart from things not going to plan, some of the other frustrations are when halfway through the project, the customer decides they want to change something. And then you're stuck with trying to somehow fit that in. So a lot of times, we'll do like just say a landscaping job, and you'll be halfway through and the customer will say, oh, no, I've decided I want to do, make the garden bed wider or make the driveway wider, and you've already organised all the boxing for the driveway a certain way, you've done all the garden beds a certain way. So that's where it can get frustrating for me as well. And that's also for like bigger things. Like I've done some basement jobs where halfway through we've started digging, and then the customer will say, oh, actually I might try and move this tank to the water tank to another section, or no, let's try and do the drains a different way. Just things that we could have, if we knew earlier, we could have allowed for them. So that's where also I get a little bit frustrated. So going back to your question there, Ground Level, that's another project frustration. And then the other one is when I give a price for something and I do it quicker than I sort of estimated and told the customer I'll be doing it. So I did a job, I'll give you an instance. I did a job once where, that's right, I had to drill a certain amount of holes and they had to be at a certain depth, and we started hitting rock halfway down each hole. And I told the customer, look, it might take 3 days, whatever, to drill all these. And then because I only had to drill, then I said to him, listen, call your engineer, ask if once we get to solid rock, do we have to continue like trying to drill and break through the rock, or will that be solid enough? Because I said a lot of times the engineer will say, well, if you can't get to your 2 meter depth, if you get to a meter and you hit rock, that's still good enough. So the engineer said, yep, that's a pass. Just get to rock, clean it out, and that should be fine. And then when I finished that job in a day and a half instead of 3 days, and then I gave the customer the invoice, and then he said, hang on a minute, where's the discount for not having to drill down as deep anymore? And I said, yeah, but I had to still drill down to the rocks, and it doesn't matter. It's a win for me. What can I do? And then we had a bit of a discussion about it, and the customer was still, tell me what you guys think, but he was saying, no, you can't be still charging me the same price because you didn't have to drill down as much. But I was like, well, the price is the price. It is what it is, man. So I don't know. Maybe, and then I did give him a bit of a discount at the end just to make him happy, but I don't know if it was the right thing to do. Jesse Walters has got a question. What do you do if you quote a job digging a hole and hit solid rock? Oh, there you go. I was just actually saying that. Yes, so that's exactly what happened to me, man. So it's funny you say that because that's exactly what it was. So yeah, it doesn't work on the other foot. Yeah, like if I got to, if the engineer said no, you still have to get 2 meters, and the rocks were a meter depth. So what does that mean? I'd have to go and get a rock drill or a core barrel and start drilling down at my own cost. Like then I'm sure if I said to the customer, listen, we're going to have to get some drills, core barrels, and it's going to cost you more, I'm sure they would have said, no, I don't want to pay extra for that. You should have allowed for that, So I don't know, man. It's very, very funny. Name a country for an edit. I don't know. Someone's asking me something. Name a country for an edit. I don't know. Australia. Yeah, it doesn't work if it's on the other foot. That's exactly right, man. Yeah, that's it. D. Gretsch is saying I was more than fair in his opinion. So, yeah, it's hard. There's some of the things that I find frustrating with projects. You know what I mean? Like, it's when you're winning, the customer's not happy. But you know what I mean? Like if I finish the job earlier, and it's the same as when they say to me, "Can you come and give me a price or something?" And I give them a price. And then I finish it a bit earlier and I say, oh, I'm done after a few hours. They say, oh, but you can't charge me for the whole day when you've only been here for a few hours. And I'm like, well, it was quicker than I thought. So it is what it is. You're willing to pay the price to get the job done. The job's done. Doesn't matter how long it took me. And then I always say, what if it took me longer? So what if it took me a day and a half and I come to you and say, hey, listen, it took me a bit longer than a day, so now it's going to be more. I bet you they wouldn't be happy then, yeah? So... yeah, Kiwi Cans is saying you've got to take a win when you can. And I just wish it was like that all the time, though, Mobo as well, thanks for joining. So we've got another question here. As a young operator, is it worth... this is from Kane, sorry, guys. As a young operator, is it worth looking at getting your own gear and having a go or stay on tax file? Very good question. Very good question. I suppose it depends on your risk appetite. If you're happy to go out, get your own machine, risk not having work for it, risk, and you can allow, and this is something I say in a lot of my podcasts, so you can go back to my YouTube channel and see some of these topics as well. So you'll see on my podcast how I started and some of my problems I had at the start is while you're working for someone, you're going to get paid whether you're working or not most of the time. Unless you've got like weather clauses and stuff like that. So at least you know you're going to get paid. When you get your own gear, you don't know what you're going to get tomorrow. So you might, no matter if someone promises you work or not, you may not actually get work in a week's time. At the drop of a hat, they'll tell you there's no work tomorrow. And usually that happens at 3:30 when you haven't prepared anything else. So you just need to take all that into consideration. So then you've got all the costs of the machines on your head, all the servicing, maintenance, risk assessments, parking, floats, all that stuff you've got to take care of. Whereas if you're working for someone, they do all that. You just turn up to work, sit in the machine and go home. Are you going to make much more working for yourself? I don't know, actually, nowadays. Kiwi in Cairns is saying too many variables, finance, experience, contacts. Yeah, so then you don't forget you've got to start doing all your own paperwork. You're the one that has to ring to find work. You know what I mean? Keep in touch with everyone. So there's a lot involved. I think if you're working for someone and you're very confident and you know a lot of people in the industry and you think you've got a little bit of like a funding buffer in the background in case things don't work out, then yes, you can go out and do your own thing. And you will make a bit more money. And then you've got all the tax benefits of claiming everything before you give your tax returns in. So you can claim all your vehicles. Man, I claim a lot of stuff through the business. So you can basically live off it. However, when you're working, everything comes out after tax. So if you want to get things taken out pre-tax and have some good tax savings, then yes, go work for yourself and get a ABN. You can also get an ABN and work as an operator if you want. So you don't have to always be on a full-time or a like, you know what I mean? Like on a full-time what do you want to call it? Like be, employed by someone. You can go out and actually subby as an operator. But I don't know. Then you got to also remember when you do work on your own, you've got to pay yourself super. You got to cover yourself for work cover. You got to get public liability insurance. So there's a lot of other background stuff you got to take on. So you got to register for GST. Then you got to pay your accountant a bit more because then you got to be ASIC registered. So it gets a lot bigger, and you get a lot more responsibility when you decide to go on your own. So yeah, a lot of variables with that decision. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say, man. Hard to say. What else? What else are you guys keen on? Has everyone heard about my projects? So Project Spalding. On Monday, all the concrete panels were stood up. So we had a crane come in on Monday. They stood up all the panels. Tuesday, the Steelies came in, and the Steelies have already put all the beams in. I went to have a look yesterday. They've already put all the beams across, all the purlins. They've made the mezzanine floor for the office already, so that's going to be all steel. They've started that, and they've started to put the purlins and the struts and that across for the office floor. So I reckon in another day or two they'll be finished, and then we'll have the roof guys come in. So I'm going to have the roof plumbers come in and start putting all the roof sheets on. And then once it's covered, I'll be happy, man. I'll have the factory covered, and I'll be able to start working on the insides, and it won't be so weather dependent. You know what I mean? And then I can probably get rid of the site shed and put everything inside under the cover, and then that'll be a big benefit. Like I was saying, I can't call it my yard anymore, so now I have to say my warehouse or my factory, because usually I tell everyone, yeah, I've taken things back to the yard, or this or that. Now it's going to be just, we've got to go all back to the factory. So we'll see how we go. Still deciding what to do, whether to keep the factory or to rent it out. At the moment, it's 90% rented out, unless I find a good reason to keep it for myself. But at the moment, there's probably no real need for me to do anything in there, because I don't have as much equipment. Everything stays on site, and I don't have anything to store. So I don't know if it's really worth it, unless I start a particular business in there that needs, like a warehouse for it. So if anyone is going to be looking in the near future to rent a warehouse, let me know as well. Yeah, hit me up, because that should be ready in a few months, I reckon, maybe 3-4 months. And then, yeah, we should be able to start renting it out after that. We've got some more questions here. Here we go. I reckon the brothel would be the best money, I tell you what. So Earthworks, good money, mate. So Nick is asking, is Earthworks good money? Yeah, I think we're just talking sort of about that. Depends on what you consider good money. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times you can see, and I have this conversation a lot with my mates that are in the industry, you can see, traffic controllers making just as much money as an operator nowadays. And, some laborers are well paid, even if you're like a leading hand or something like that on the site, you get good money nowadays. And then if you go and work in like a government project as an operator, you can make more money than a guy that's working with his own machinery. So yeah, don't know, man. It's very, very hard to say if it's good money. Not as good as it used to be. We got Jack Healy's back on, Longridge, Chris McCurry. Thanks guys for joining. Nick's asking, what about owning your own earthworks company? I think something that I probably found is that I did better when I quoted projects or quoted a job complete from start to finish, or like a certain segment of a project, and quoted it rather than doing hourly rate. And it is hard because you can make mistakes, and like we were saying about projects before, you can make errors, and your project totally blows out, and you make no money or barely anything. You break even. So having an earthworks company, you could make good money. If you're an earthworks company but you run everything on hourly rate, then it's almost like just working for someone on their machine. And then what you can do to try and absorb some of the costs and that is to service it yourself and a lot of guys on here will probably agree with me. You end up servicing things yourself, doing everything like after hours yourself, all the paperwork and that, not giving it to someone else to do, so you can sort of absorb some of those costs and keep some of that money for yourself. So yeah, I don't know. It's not like it used to be. So Sammy Jordan's asking how many machines you got. Is it just the Kubota? Yeah. Yes, Sammy, at the moment, I'm just down to the Kubota. So the Kubota U55. And I'm happily just strolling along with that machine, doing projects with it, doing hourly rate jobs with it. And then when I'm not busy on that, I'm jumping on other mates' machines, helping them out, or doing a lot of this Earthworks hub stuff. And that's why also I've cut down, because I can't be doing all those big projects and doing all the quoting and everything else and doing all the Earthworks hub stuff at the same time. It's just a bit too much. So I want to focus on this. So that's why I've sort of streamlined a bit on the business side. Deodorated, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Oh, Deodorated, maybe that's what it is. Rubber tracks or rubber pads on an 8-tonner. Here, thank you for the likes too, guys. Rubber tracks or rubber pads on an 8-tonner. I think we went through something similar last episode, but I reckon rubber tracks are probably rubber tracks over the rubber pads. For some reason, I like the rubber tracks. I feel like they make less damage. They spread the load of the weight of the machine better. So user 8966 is saying rubber tracks as well. I just feel like they damage things less. And then the rubber pads, I feel like they still get damaged a lot. Like I had rubber pads on my 14-tonner. As soon as you're going on rocks and doing stuff, you start chipping away at the pads, and then they render useless. And then after a while, you get a bit tight and you think, oh, I'll just, as the rubber pads fall off and that, I'll just leave them. So if there's gaps, it's still got some sort of rubber touching the ground. And then you end up having, like less and less rubber pads on there. And I don't know. And also what I found is like on this Case CX145 I've been using this week, or the last few weeks, as soon as it gets wet, it has rubber pads on it. As soon as it gets wet, the rubber pads become so slippery that I've got no grip with the machine. Like if I'm climbing up a hill, it won't climb. It will just slide. Whereas I come up on my 5-tonner and it just keeps climbing. So, and the 5-tonner's got rubber tracks. So I feel like the rubber tracks are better in my opinion. But as Kiwi in Cairns is saying, it is personal preference. So we got Runmark Galia. I think that's what it is. Whoop. What would be your best advice for getting your foot in the door and finding work? So I'm hoping you mean getting your foot in the door as in just starting out on machines. So I'm not sure if you meant if you've already got a machine and you want to try and get work for it, or if you haven't had a machine and you just want to get into it. Either way, if you want to just get into the industry, all of us say the same thing. Start somewhere as a labourer, a spotter. Even if you have to start as a traffic controller, start somewhere in a civil company or a landscaping business and just work on the ground first, see what the excavators are doing. You'll start watching from a distance to start with, and then before you know it, you'll be spotting for one. Then there'll be days and if they know you've got your ticket, they might say to you, can you jump in and just quickly move something, or can you quickly dig this trench out? And before you know it, they'll be saying, oh, can you just sit in it a bit longer? Somebody will be away, somebody will be sick, and then you might get a chance. That's for that. If you've got a machine and you want to get your foot in the door and find work, start with plant hire agencies. That's what I would recommend. And then start looking for your own little customers. Advertise, get yourself a web page, put yourself on a Google business page, put yourself out on Facebook Marketplace, pop into little work sites and just tell them what machines you've got, and then try and push your way in that way, and then keep in touch and keep calling them and so forth. So that's something I've advised a few times now, and I reckon it's definitely going to work. So Nick is saying currently he's a carpenter, he's on good money after the apprenticeship. Yeah, and look, you know what? At least the good thing is when you're doing an apprenticeship, you come out with some like a formal qualification, and then if you're good, people will pay top dollar for you. So That's good that you're doing that, Nick. Very, very good. And I would recommend that to a lot of people. Do like an apprenticeship, plumbing, electrician, anything like that, chippy, because apparently there's a shortage. So if you can get your foot in the door with that stuff, you're going to be guaranteed work. Thank you for the likes, man. Loving it. Thank you. So we got Truck and Earth sales. Ooh, thanks for joining Truck and Earth. So guys, make sure that if you're selling any machinery, trucks, or any attachments or any parts, make sure that you go to Truck and Earth sales. That's going to be the latest and greatest for selling anything. So Truck and Earth sales, check it out. It's on the app as well, so you can actually download an app, and then if you want to sell stuff, it's the bees knees. So make sure you go there. So Run Amok is saying thank you. User saying you had it on his 10-ton Yanmar. I think user was saying rubber tracks. Is that right? Let me just go back a little bit here. Where was it? Oh, I can't see, but yeah, hopefully that's what you were saying. Yeah, that's right. So you had rubber tracks. Yeah, I think a lot of the 10-ton Yanmars and they all come out with rubber tracks here. So yeah, I think rubber tracks is probably the way to go. However, the negative is that if you rip a rubber track, all it takes is one rip and you have to replace the whole thing. Yeah, thank you. All right. And Rona Makalia is saying, yeah, currently working at a landscape company and even worked with you a few years back. Oh, worked with me a few years back. Haha, there you go, man. There you go. Oh, well, then it's good to have worked with you then. So yeah, I've worked everywhere, man. I'll tell you what, I can't even remember half the places. Somebody asked me a bit earlier today, like what I thought about a few things, like Casabine, Winslow, some of the other sites, some of the other big civil companies. What Xylo boxed is saying he did the edit. I don't know what the edit is. Unless it's something, I don't know much about all this stuff yet. So if I have to do something, tell me. Kiwi in Cairns is saying our industry needs a qualification of some description, in his opinion, not just a ticket you get in 2 hours. Yeah, I agree, man. You know, I often talk about this, but I always said that we need to get like a apprenticeship system or a traineeship system for excavation, for instance. So I know that some places, and if you look on my YouTube channel, if you go to Foresight Training Group, I did like a day tour through their facility, and basically it says I went through and I went through the whole process of getting a certificate 3 in civil construction. So when you do that, it's a 23-week course or something, and you get to learn how to use all the little dump trucks. You get to use excavator, bobcat, front end loader. What else do you get to use? I think the rollers. So they teach you all that stuff. So at least when you come out, you've got some experience on each machine, and they also talk about the civil industry and how things work. So I think there is something they're starting to come up with, and they're all government funded. So they're coming up with a lot of these things, a lot of like courses and that to try and get people going. But still maybe not enough, you know, still not too much. Oh, I run amok. Galea was saying, yeah, it was the treescapes in Bacchus Marsh. Oh, there you go, man. There you go. Oh, yeah, I remember that in Bacchus Marsh when I was doing I can't remember what that street was. That was for LD Total, wasn't it? I think. There you go. Oh, what have I done here? Hang on. How do I go back? Whoop. Sorry, guys. I just clicked on something there. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So that's good, man. Good discussion, guys. Good discussion. So I don't know. I prefer rubber tracks over the rubber pads. We talked a bit about which grease guns are good. I think I'm gonna sell my cordless grease guns because I don't really need them anymore. When I was using the 5-tonner, I just now use the handheld, the old school Allen Lube handheld gun with one of the McNaught little lock-on attachments at the end. And for a 5-tonner, that's enough. Then I don't have to worry about charging the batteries always. I just have it sitting in the back of the ute, or actually what I do now is I just have it sitting in a little box inside one of the buckets I'm not using and just keep moving it around with that. and then I don't have to keep worrying about charging the guns always. And then, like I said, the ones that I used, the Ryobi ones, just kept over pumping grease in there. So now I've just gone back to manual. And you know what? It's not as bad as I thought. Sometimes we all think we have to have these fancy bits of equipment, but you actually don't really need it. Good conversation, guys. I also put out this week some posts on what did I put out there? I did obviously I filmed the walls going up at Project Spalding. I also did an ad for my website. So for anyone that doesn't know, earthworkshub.com.au, it's an online business directory. So not only do I have all my podcasts and that on there, and links to all the socials, but it's also a business directory. So if you've got a business in Earthworks, make sure you list it on there, and that way people can find your business. They can come and if they need your like services, they'll call you up. So, and vice versa, if you're doing a project and you need like an Earthworks company, make sure you go to Earthworks Hub first. Have a look at who's on there. You can do a search. There's already a fair few on there. Go in and find someone, and you can tell what state they're in and everything. And then try and use the guys that are already listed on there. Let's help each other out, yeah? So, make sure you go to earthworkshub.com.au and check it out, guys. And also, while you're on there, you can buy Earthworks Hub merch. So if you do want to support Earthworks Hub, you got t-shirts, hoodies. I'm trying to make hats. I was saying this a bit earlier, but for some reason you need like an embroidery file, like a .emb file, which I've never heard of. So they won't let me upload my logo unless I've got that file. So somehow I have to figure out how to get that. But I was just happy to even have the screen printed ones on the hat, but they don't do those. So yes, you can get merch on there. So if you want to support me or Earthworks Hub, make sure you go. Oh, thanks for the likes, guys. What else? I did the post with the tiger teeth. So yeah, this job I'm doing, the basement, all the shotcreting's done for all the side walls. They did the hollow core. They installed hollow core panels on top as a lid for the basement, and then on top of that lid is going to be a tennis court. So the hollow cores are just like these long, thin panels that go they span from one side of the basement to the other, and it's interesting how they work. And then basically the tennis court will be built on top of that. So I'll tell you, once those things have gone on, the hollow cores, you can, like the lid's gone onto the basement, you can actually see the scale of it. It's huge, man, huge basement. And now we're starting to do all the trenches, and that's what I was doing with that tiger teeth bucket that brought up the silica conversation. I was digging out the footings for the retaining walls for the front end of the house. So they're going to be retaining walls all around the front. So yeah, I did some posts on that. I was very sick, so I might still have a bit of a croaky voice and nasally voice. I was very, very sick this week. I caught a cold. Did do a COVID test. It wasn't COVID, for anyone that's going to ask. It wasn't COVID, but I'll tell you what, it felt like it. I was buggered. Absolutely buggered. Still working in that 14-tonner this week, and I think I will be again next week. Still doing those... doing the footings for the walls. The lift shaft panels were installed. So you might have seen in my... for anyone that hasn't seen it, but I also, during the week, I have live sessions while I'm working. So I often flick the camera on and you can watch me work. And I usually have like good conversations. So make sure you do that during the week as well. Keep an eye out for my lives. But during that, we saw the lift shaft get installed. And all the steel guys were there connecting all of that. So that's interesting to see. The plumbing is all complete. And that was it for that project. Yeah, so I loaded a couple of tandems and that. Having a bit of fun there at that job, actually. There's a fair bit going on. Just interesting in those tight little basements how you have to work around all the people. You got things happening everywhere. So you've got to really be... on your toes, you really got to look who's around, because people walk behind the machine, people walk under the buckets. You got to be really, really careful. So Tristan 777, is saying this week he worked on a 2022 Cabalco 5-tonner. Okay, so an SK55. How did you find it? What was your opinion on that? While he's typing, what else did I do this week and mention? I was saying that I'm still waiting for temporary power at Project Spalding. I was saying how it's funny when you work with these utility companies that everything's their way. So like they've given me notification saying that yes, they are going to connect temporary power to my site within the next 15 days. And then they say, but if we turn up and we can't have access to the site, we're going to charge you a futile, try. Like they've tried to come to work, but they can't. So I tried calling them to say, you need to tell me a date when you're coming so I can open the gates, because we're not obviously going to leave the gates unlocked. And they say they can't give me a date. And then I said, well, can I at least get someone to call me before you come so I can try and quickly open up for you? They can't even do that. It's just weird, but yet they're willing to charge me, charge me for not being able to access the site when they decide to turn up. But they won't give you a specific time or day. Crazy how it's all one way. So Tristan's getting back to us. So using the Cabalco 5-tonner, he's saying he prefers the Kubota. There you go. Yeah, it's funny because I did a review. So if you go to one of my, not recent, but maybe a fair few months back, I did a review on a 5.5-ton Cabalco. I found that it didn't have as much power as the Kubota. It was very hard. It was very hard. I'm just reading a comment at the same time. Yeah, I didn't find that. I found it didn't have as much power as the Kubota. However, making me go that little bit slower was better because yes, I found when I was trimming it was a lot smoother. Very good. So Tristan's saying that yeah, he found the Cabalco was better for trimming, and you're correct. The Cabalco did feel better for trimming because the Kubota doesn't matter what revs you have it at. The Kubota U55 has that much power in that when you start trimming, it starts to like jolt. It doesn't like going slow and even. And it's like you constantly got to fight it to try and get it nice and smooth. Whereas the Cabalco, you put the bucket down, pull back, and it just comes back nice and even. So you're right. But I did try, like for example, and I thought maybe it was the hose burst valves that were restricting it. If you put the bucket down on the ground and try and lift yourself up, I couldn't lift the machine half the time, especially if I was bogged down. Just say that the ground was a bit wet, the suction would keep the machine down, and it would struggle to lift the front of the tracks up so that I could twist and get out. Whereas the Kubota usually wouldn't do that. The Kubota will have enough power to lift itself out, and it's saved me a few times. Like I've sunken a fair bit. Once I sunk, and you'll see one of my ancient posts a long time ago, I actually sunk the Kubota up to the cabin, and I still barely got myself out. So, and I don't know if I was in the Cabalco whether that would be the same outcome. And Tristan's agreeing. Yeah, he's saying he gets the same with the Kubota. When you're trimming, it starts to jolt. It doesn't like it. So, yeah, there you go. Good conversation, guys. Very good. Very good. Yeah, what else is there? I'm happy to stay on for a little bit longer. So maybe another 5-10 minutes. So, yeah, hit me up with whatever you want to ask. Ask or forever hold your peace, as they say. Is there any like feedback you have for me on my podcasts or any feedback on the website? Actually, on going back to the website, I've noticed a lot of guys have actually, after I did that ad this week, a few people have gone in and registered their businesses, but they haven't actually listed it. So when you go in, if you want to list your business, first you've got to register yourself as a user. So you sign in. If it's your first time, it'll make a password for you. Often it's better off to just click on reapply for a new password and then make your own one. Then once you've done that, that means you're just registered as a user. Then you actually have to click on add listing and then put all your business details in. And then that way people have all your contact details in it. Otherwise, yeah, if you just register, it doesn't advertise your business, that you just stay in the background as a user. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, I just noticed a lot of guys have gone in and registered, but not actually finished or done the actual listing part. So make sure you do that. Thank you for joining as well. CBM Excavations, Pride Earthworks. We got Brandon SCO. Oh, Brandon Scott, is it? So yeah, now we've got a fair few people on. What else? What else is there, guys? What else would you like to talk about? So Tristan 777 worked on a Cabalco 22 tonner this week, cleaning a dam. Good machine, very heavy controls. A 22 tonner. Yeah, well, I owned, I'm hoping that was an SK210. I had a Cabalco SK. I had a couple of SK210s. I found them pretty good. I found the Cabalco 21 tonners, one with 21. I found them very good. Were they heavy controls? I don't know. I don't know if they were that heavy. I can't remember now. It was a while back. But I found them like pretty good. I reckon they were very good. Darcy Wilson has a question. Best size excavator to purchase as a first machine? Very, very good question. Very good question. What does everybody else think? Best size excavator to purchase as a first machine. Well, you got two choices there. I made a mistake, I reckon. I went straight away and bought an SK210. So I bought a 20-ton machine. My plan was different though. So I wasn't planning to always be in that machine. I thought I'm going to get it, keep working at my old job and just put an operator in there and it'll be easy. The operator will sit in there. I'll be making millions, yeah. But I was quick to find out that it doesn't work like that. You know, finding operators is not, you can't find someone at the drop of a hat. They're not always going to hang around. The civil companies are going to like some operators, not like some. So for me, it was a very, very hard start. And then that forced me also to have to leave my old job, jump in there and try and quickly learn on my own. So I wouldn't recommend getting a massive one. Maybe if you're going to jump in there and you're already experienced and you're happy to sit in that at a civil company and, you know, load trucks, maybe it's not bad because you're not going to do something too detailed. So in the 20, you might be loading trucks, you might be boxing a road, you might be sorting material, which is not bad if you're still sort of learning and going. The 5-tonner, most of the guys here are saying a 5-tonner. A 5-tonner is good because it's versatile. So you could be, you know, doing landscaping one day, you could be doing a site cut the next day, you could be, I don't know, you could be doing a driveway or preparing something for concreters. But they're a lot more fiddly and you're doing a lot more detailed work with it. So if you're going to get your own machine, and you're going to get something like a 5-tonner, you'd want to already be very, very well experienced. That's what I would say. You need to be very experienced. So if you're not that experienced, maybe like a big machine. So that way, you know, you can start off, like I said, loading trucks, doing these bigger jobs that aren't so detailed. Whereas if you are very good already on the machine, something smaller like a 5 or an 8 or something might be better. And yes, Darcy, the good thing you just said then is the 5-ton market is very saturated in Victoria. Every man and his dog has a 5-tonner. Every man and his dog has a 1.7 now. So yes, it's a bit of a battle if you've got a 5-ton machine, man. Yeah, definitely, man, definitely. It's very saturated. But I think, yeah, if you're a good operator, and look, there's a lot of 5-tonners, but not all of them are good. So that's where you need to stand out. So in my opinion, a 5-tonner is good if you want to do that. The only other thing with a 5-tonner is you can't just buy the machine then. And then you need to work out how you're going to float that machine around. Are you going to pay a float company to keep moving it? Because if you are, the float company, you know, you might be able to pass the cost on to the customer on the float in, but they won't want to pay the float out. So that means you need to find work for that, the same as a big machine. You need to find work for that for you to be able to charge the float into the next job. Otherwise, you're going to pay the float out, then find somewhere, because if that customer can't keep it on site, you're going to pay the float out, take it somewhere, and hopefully store it somewhere if you can find somewhere, and then have to pay the float in for the next job. So you're constantly losing a float out, which is what I'm finding at the moment because I've only got the 5 and I don't have a truck anymore. So that's the only other thing when you're starting out. If you get a 5, you got to be careful because you got to work out how you're going to move that around. So you might need to get more than just a machine. You might need to get a truck as well. And Pride Earthworks is saying he's deciding to go a tipper and a 6-tonner, which is a bit more versatile. Yeah, look, I think that might be the way, and that's exactly what I was saying. Yeah, by the time you might need to get a truck as well. You might not be able to get just the one. And Darcy's saying, yeah, by the time the truck and float is purchased, if you're not able to stay on the same site, you're in for a lot, especially based on the per hour rate. Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. So JPG Excavations, I think you're going to ask the same question that I always ask customers, and I think that's right. So JPG is saying, why do you think a customer will pay a dry hire company two-way float, but not when it's a wet hire situation? That is a bloody good question. Why won't they pay both ways? It doesn't make sense to me. That's exactly right. But they're happy to do that if they're renting a machine. That is so true, man. So true. And I think what's happened is over time, we, the subbies, we, the contractors, have actually caused our own drama. One, most of us have a 5-tonner with a truck. So what we say is, oh, we'll just charge you. We're coming there anyway, so we'll just charge you a minimal float to get there. And we won't charge you on the way out because we're going to have to drive back out anyway to get the work. We're all doing that because it's saturated. So we've caused our own issues, I reckon. So what we did was we offered it to customers to try and win the job. Yeah, don't worry, we'll just charge you a minimal float to come in. We won't even charge you a float on the way out because we're going to have to take the machine with us anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But that means now every customer expects everyone with a 5-tonner to have their own tipper and to only have to pay a float in and not have to pay for the float out. So I think we've created our own issues, man. I reckon over time that's what's happened. And Tristan is saying you don't need a float just for a 5-tonner. All you need is a medium rigid beaver tail. It's true, yeah. So you don't need an actual, like a tip truck or I had, so some of my 5s were based on a tipper. So some of them had a tip truck, like a 10-ton tip truck for each one. And then I had one 5-tonner set up on a beaver tail medium rigid that had all the drills on there. So that was our drilling machine, drilling sort of excavator. But you still got to pay for that truck then, you know what I mean? So then you've got the truck, the regos, the repairs, the insurance and that. So then you've got all those on top. And then you've got to store the truck somewhere. So in most suburban houses, you can't store that truck. So there's all the extra costs that come when you buy a 5-ton machine. Whereas if you buy like a 15-tonner or above, mainly that's just going to sit on site until the next job, and you might be on like longer term work. So yeah, it's hard to say what the best machine is. It depends on what sort of money you got, what you want to spend. There you go. So user 8966 is saying he charges or she charges travel for the way out. So I don't see why we shouldn't. I really don't see why we shouldn't charge for it. Because if the customer wants you there, you got to come there. And you know what it is? When on my 20-ton machine and my 14, I used to charge them a float in, and it would only be a one-way float if the day was if it would be a one-way float if we were there for more than three or 4 days. If you're there for less than that, then it's a two-way float. Or if they could say to you that you can leave the machine there until you find another job. And I think that was the only good thing about having a big machine. So yeah, it's funny though. Yeah, JPG, that is a very good question. Oh man, I'm thirsty as. So yeah, I hope I answered your question there. If you are thinking about getting into the industry, there's a lot to consider. But also, if you want to hear more about that, go to my podcast on starting a business in Earthworks, and I answer a lot of those questions. Go to Spotify or go to my YouTube channel, and you'll see I actually did a whole a whole video or a whole podcast on that, on how to start an earthworks business and all the considerations. So there you go, food for thought. What else, guys? I'm gonna start wrapping this up. It's 9:17. A lot of us have to go to work tomorrow. By the time I wind all this up, close everything down. Zach, thanks for joining as well. Hopefully you're enjoying those t-shirts. Make sure you send some photos, man, if you're still on, Zach. Send some photos so we can see how they look. Tristan, he's saying goodbye. Yes, all right. So that's my cue, guys. I'm going to leave. Make sure you follow me on all my socials. So Earthworks Hub, TikTok, Facebook. Got a Facebook group. So join that group if you like. TikTok, what did I say? Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, on all those sorts of socials. On YouTube, make sure you go and like or subscribe, because I need 500 followers by the end of May. So we're 320 now. I want to hit 500 by the end of May. So make sure you go and subscribe now. Best you go and do it after this so you don't forget. And also don't forget to list your business on Earthworks Hub or use one of the businesses that are already on there. Guys, thank you for joining me. I will see you guys on next week's live. I'll make an announcement that we're going to have a set time. And I appreciate you all coming on here and having a chat and all your topic suggestions. Thank you very much. Cooper, I'll see you during the week. Yeah, keep an eye out for my lives during the week as well, yeah? All the best, guys. Have a good one. Thank you.